going to have our second Bible reading, which Richard will bring us.
The second reading is a continuation from the first in Luke 23, and I'm going to read from verse 26. As they led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A large number of people followed him, including women who mourned and wailed for him. Jesus turned and said to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, 'Blessed are the barren women, the wombs that never bore and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if men do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him along with the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Christ of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was written a notice above him which read, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God," he said, "since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, "I tell you the truth. Today you will be in paradise." It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour, for the sun stopped shining. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." When he had said this, he breathed his last. The centurion, seeing what had happened, praised God and said, "Surely this was a righteous man." When all the people who had gathered to witness this sight saw what took place, they beat their breasts and went away. But all those who knew him, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance watching these things. Now there was a man called Joseph, a member of the council, a good and upright man, who had not consented to their decision and action. He came from the Judean town of Arimathea, and he was waiting for the kingdom of God. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body. Then he took it down, wrapped it in linen cloth, and placed it in a tomb cut in the rock, one in which no one had yet been laid. It was preparation day, and the Sabbath was about to begin. The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed Joseph and saw the tomb and how his body was laid in it. Then they went home and prepared spices and perfume, but they rested on the Sabbath in obedience with the commandment. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
You're a big bunch of people on a day like this. I didn't think I'd see anyone on my way home. What with all that's going on in Jerusalem? Seems everyone has gone to Jerusalem to see what's happening. Not me. No, not me. I'm on my way home to see my family, my wife and kids. They will literally not believe their eyes. I can't quite believe it myself. It has only just happened. I want to get away before they change their mind, before they want to take me back, before they realize they've made a terrible mistake. You see, they had me banged to rights. I'd been there in prison for several weeks. I was so hungry and thirsty, I didn't know which day it was. They'd beaten me so much that just to get me ready, I was ready to die. Yeah, today, I was meant to die. I was going to be executed. The Romans, they do it by crucifixion. You know that, by nailing you. Well, not you, me. By nailing me to a cross and then lifting me high until I was dead. What an amazing thing to say, eh? Today I was meant to be being executed. They had me banged to rights. I knew I was guilty. Everyone did. I should have been there. But I'm not. I've been let go. I still can't quite believe it's happened. What? You want to know how I got away from the Roman jail? Yeah. Do you know, I don't know. Well, I don't know everything that happened. Let me tell you, I wasn't there, but I heard a big commotion upstairs. And when I say upstairs, I was down in a dungeon, but I could hear up in the palace, there was a lot of noise, a lot of scuffling, and a whole lot of people shouting my name, Barrabas, Barrabas. I didn't know why. But I tell you, I thought my time had come. I thought that's where they'd be going to get me and put the nails through my hands, through my feet, attach me to those horrible wooden bars that they put you on before they lift you up. Barrabas, Barrabas, they kept on crying. And then I heard an equally loud cry. Crucify him, crucify him. Well, now you can imagine my heart really started beating. I knew my time had come. So when I heard those feet outside on the stones and when I heard the doors being opened, I really thought those keys were the sign of my destiny, of my end. And it was there. Everything I've done flashed before my eyes. Deep down, I knew I was guilty. After all I'd done, a trial didn't take long. It never takes long, but guilty, they said. And well, you all know that guilty, I was true. I was guilty of murder. The families of the people that I killed, they also knew I was guilty. The gang that I had as we tried to overthrow the Romans, they also knew I was guilty. You do the crime, you pays the time, they say. Except my time was death. That's what I knew I was going to be suffering today. And just as those doors were opening, all I could think of was my wife and kids. I didn't know if they'd try and make it to Jerusalem to watch me die. I hoped they wouldn't. I couldn't bear to think of them watching me struggling up that hill, barely able to walk. Even though I know I'm guilty, I wasn't looking forward to the shame and the mocking that I'd face as I walked through the streets, a condemned man on his way to his end. Somehow the shame of that walk was more fearsome than the pain even of suffering. I mean, let's face it, we're all embarrassed, aren't we, when we're caught out? Well, I knew that would be in my face today. They had me banged to rights and I knew it. I knew I deserved to die. I knew my time had come. The funny thing is I was only found guilty for a few of the things I'd done. They didn't try me for everything. They couldn't. There wasn't time. But I knew the penalty was right. I knew I deserved what I was getting, and I just wanted it to be quick. I know I've been raised a Jew, but I don't know if I believe in God. I knew I was going to die today, but I've never really given it any thought as to whether something would happen after I died. Why would you? Don't we all just live for life today? Who worries about tomorrow? Who worries about their death? About being held to account? Actually, I was beginning to think, was there a God? I was beginning to wonder whether there was any way I could be forgiven for what I'd done. I knew the Romans wouldn't forgive me. They wanted me dead. But if there is a God, could he forgive me? Could he look at all I've done and still let me off? I have to admit, as I sat there in my jail, I thought you'd have to be some funny kind of God, because I know I've done a whole lot of wrong. How on earth could he let me go free? How on earth could he let me off? Surely it was right that I paid the penalty for all I've done. But here I am. I'm alive. I'm on my way home to see my family. They won't believe their eyes. No one gets away from Roman executions. They'll probably think they've seen a ghost. I'm alive. I'm free. That's actually what the soldier said to me as he opened my cell doors. He said, "You're free to go, Barrabas." I thought they were playing with me. I thought they were playing some cruel game where they let me try and run away, and that will give them an excuse to try and whip me some more. So I said, no, I'm not playing that game. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Let's get it over and done with. The soldier laughed. He looked at me in the eyes. And he said, Barrabas, you're free to go. They're punishing someone else right now as we speak. There's this bloke, some king of the Jews. He's being whipped in your place. The soldier, he continued, he went on, because he said this, the strangest of things. He said, he's a strange one, that one, because they're whipping him, but he's not making a sound. Not even a groan or a grunt. I saw it with my own eyes. My mates, they do a good job. They get some squeals out of people. I carried on looking at the soldier as if I couldn't believe it. What I could say was, what? So that soldier, he gave me some water, sat me down, and just before he left, he explained what happened. We only had a few moments, but they changed my life. Barrabas, you are free to go. Last night, they brought in this bloke, Jesus, I think that's his name. They call him the King of the Jews. The thing is, Pilate could find nothing wrong with him. Pilate wanted to let him go, but the crowd would have none of it. They were calling your name, Barrabas. They wanted you set free instead of this Jesus bloke. So Pilate gave the crowd what they wanted. He gave instructions for you to be set free, which is why I'm here, mate. You're free today. They're punishing that Jesus in your place. Come on, let's go. And as he dragged me out of the prison, I caught a glimpse of that man, Jesus. It was obvious who he was because he was walking in my shoes. He was carrying my cross. He was going where I should have gone. He was on his way to die instead of me. I think I even caught a glimpse of his eyes, you know. They were incredible because they were so good. It was as if he was pleased for me and wanted me to know that all was well. I've never seen that before. Such love. So that's why I'm here on my way home. They had me banged to rights. I knew I deserved to die. Today was going to be my day of dying. But just as true as I am here in front of you, there's a man called Jesus that's hanging on a cross right now in my place. I do the crime. He's doing the time. Except his time has come to an end. I did the crime, someone else is paying the time. Someone else is dying today and I'm not. All I can say is you can't imagine how good that feels. After all I've done, after all my shame, I'm free to go. If there is a God, I only hope Jesus doesn't suffer too much. I only hope the pain is not as bad as they say it is. I only hope his death is quick. Because from all that they say, he didn't deserve to die. I'd heard about him, you know. I'd heard he was some kind of teacher. He'd only been around a bit, but it seemed that for a while, quite a lot of people wanted to know him. And until the end, that is, until this last week, I wish I'd had a chance to see him. I think we'd probably have got on. Amazingly, he was well known for hanging out for my kind. He had some kind of message that we can all be friends with God, that God will forgive us for what we've all done. Oh, I didn't bother at the time. But I tell you what, in that jail, as I sat there, I started to remember the idea of being forgiven suddenly seemed quite good. But I knew I didn't deserve it, so it wasn't for me. Except, come to think of it, I mean, maybe it was for me. I mean, look at me. I've just been set free because of Jesus. I've not done anything to deserve it. I know I deserve to die, but somehow Pilate sent him to the cross instead of me. I'm so thankful. But I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I've got to get going. I want to see my family and tell them all the good news.